Hello folks, today we're looking at the Subaru Forester. This is the 2-litre e-boxer. The particular one I've got here is in sport trim, which is top of the shop. Comes in at 41 grand on the road. If you want the optional black paint, it's an extra 595 quid. The only free colour on this one is white, by the way. 0-62 time is 11.8 seconds, 150 PS of power, 196 Newton meters of torque and 34.7 mpg WLTP is the economy figure. So is that too much money for not enough performance, or is this one a little gem? Let's find out, shall we? Right folks, so when it comes to the interior of the car, it's a beautiful thing actually. It's really nicely put together, quite good quality materials used throughout the cabin, and they've gone for a slightly more interesting design than you might be used to in most Subaru vehicles. Build quality is absolutely top drawer. Some of the buttons on the steering wheel perhaps don't feel like the best plastics in terms of their sort of touch appeal. Is that a thing? Touch appeal, if I just made that up? But they feel like they'll be exactly the same in about 30 years time. Really solid, really nice. Everything's reasonably well laid out. You've got physical controls for the aircon, you've got a volume knob, there's a thing. You've got a little colour infotainment system here, and although the sort of logos they've used for the apps look a little bit 1990s, it's really easy to use and fairly well laid out. Most importantly, it's got Apple CarPlay and there's plenty of room there to use your CarPlay. There's also this secondary screen up here, which is slightly odd. That seems to be dishing out the details of the road you're currently in, sat-nav information if you're using the car's inbuilt sat-nav, and you've got the temperature and the clock and everything up there. You've then got two traditional analog dials and a small digital screen in the middle, all completely fine, but it's a little bit overwhelming when you first get in because there's sort of information all over the place. However, I have to say, after spending a week with the car, I've got quite used to everything and have no real issues with it. In terms of storage, you've got a small glove box there and a little cubby here, which is useful but not that capacious, and a couple of cup holders down here. The seats are very comfortable and very adjustable. And really, this front cabin is a really nice place to be. No major issues with it whatsoever. The other thing to mention with this front cabin, and just for your driving position, A, it's a great driving position, but B, the visibility is astounding. Got this huge windscreen, really large side windows, and you can see for miles at the back. The back window's epic as well. With so many cars now, it's like you're looking through a letterbox when you look out the back. And even in the front, sometimes huge pillars here. This Forester has probably given me the best visibility of any car I can remember testing in the last 12 months. So all in all, a really nicely put together cabin that feels built for robustness rather than luxuriousness, I guess. But it doesn't feel like there's any real compromise. It's a nice place to be. Right folks, so in the rear cabin, space is that common theme. There's tons of it. Just look at this. Loads of leg room, loads of foot room. And then down in the middle here, we've only got a very low transmission tunnel, and there's still plenty of foot room either side of it, to be fair, without encroaching on the other passengers. The middle seat is okay. It's more of a half to 2/3 seat, but it's very comfortable. So you could get away with sitting 3 adults across the back here. There's also plenty of shoulder room, which is nice. You've got 2 USB-A sockets down here, a couple of vents, and oh, don't forget the seat pockets. There's also a little special seat pocket there to put a mobile phone in. It's a nice place to be. No issues with it whatsoever. The seats are really comfortable. You've got that same great visibility in the back that you've got in the front. And despite the fact we haven't got a sunroof in this one, it's still nice and bright and airy. Now, as we move to the back here, we've got a 509 litre boot. Very easy to retract little load cover there. You've also got plenty of space underneath this false floor, quite a large cubby there. The batteries are also in there, so you don't get as much space as you would in something like the Subaru Outback. However, look at that for a space. It's nice and big and square. It's very simple to get things in and out. And I feel like you could carry a lot more in this boot than possibly in some cars with an even larger load capacity, thanks to the fact that it's just so easy to use. You've also got a couple of hooks there to hang your carrier bags on, quick release for the rear seats to pop those down, and you've got a 12 volt over here. Nice job, Subaru. So now we get on to the meat and bones of it. What's the thing like to drive? And let's start off, we're on a really bumpy track here, and just talk about the car's off-road capabilities, which are stunning. The car easily outperforms most rival SUVs and crossovers on the market when it comes to driving along the bumpy stuff. The car's got dedicated drive modes for things like snow, dirt, deep snow, mud, you name it, it can handle it. Where it might lack a little bit is with the amount of grunt it's got. If you're really in the heavy stuff and the car's fully laden, I feel like it might struggle a little bit at that point, but otherwise it's very, very capable off-road. Now, when it comes to the smoother surfaces, when you get it onto the tarmac, the news is not quite so good. It's very compliant, very easy to drive, very comfortable. It hasn't got a lot of body roll despite being quite a sort of raised vehicle with a reasonably high side. But where it's lacking is in the oomph department. It's got this Lineartronic gearbox, which is a CVT, and I've said it many times before, but CVTs for me really detract from the driving experience. A lot of people like them. They're known for being reasonably reliable, but to me, it feels like yesterday's technology, and it feels like we should be moving away from CVT. Combined with the fact that despite this car having some hybrid technology on board, it's not very powerful. You know, 0 to 60 is just under 12 seconds. It's only got around 150 horsepower. And for me, in a car of this price point and a car of this size, it's simply not good enough. Now, don't get me wrong with this. For most people, the amount of power on offer is completely adequate. It's just, I feel it should at least have another option. It should have a more powerful drivetrain option, because just giving this one option, a car at this price point, seems like a bit of a misstep, if I'm perfectly honest. And when you combine that slight lack of driving excitement with the fact that it's only returning about 35 mpg WLTP, it's a tough one. If you're going to spend a lot of your time in foul weather conditions, driving down farm tracks and things like that, you can't go far wrong with this, in fairness. However, if you spend most of your time on the flat stuff, I think there are some much more compelling options available around this price point. Even within Subaru, the Outback, which to be fair has some of the same failings as this one, but seems to offer just a tad more for slightly less money. I'm just sitting here in traffic at the moment, and it's funny because, you know, reflecting on the comments I've just made to you, you probably think that I absolutely hate this vehicle, and I don't at all. I actually really like the thing. It ticks loads of boxes and will do for a lot of people. My main issue with it is probably that price point, because if this car were £10,000 less, I think it becomes a different conversation. I mean, it feels like a really rugged thing that's going to last forever, and it's nice and comfortable and there's tons of space, but it doesn't feel like value for money, not when you compare it to some of the rivals. In fact, when you think about it, the only area that this car is lacking in really is that drivetrain. With a different engine and gearbox combination, this becomes a whole different conversation. It really does, because everything else about the car works, and it's just that bit that lets the side down a touch. I'm hoping my mic picks this up, but when people ask me why I don't like CVTs, I don't know if it picked it up or not, but it's just that horrible whine, and it just doesn't feel like you're making as much progress as you should. So, you know, the way I always sum these reviews up, and it's by telling you how I feel about the car going back. And despite the fact that I'm not in love with the drivetrain, I'll still be sorry to see it go. It's a car that I really want to love because it does so much, so unbelievably well, that there's a lot to love, frankly. It's just that drivetrain just lets it down. 50 more horsepower, a torque converter, or a dual clutch system even, and this becomes a whole different conversation. But don't let my comments put you off, folks, because obviously not everyone watching this video is going to need a ton of power for overtaking. They're not going to want to race away from the traffic lights. They're not going to want an engaging drive. They're going to want comfort. They're going to want relaxation. They're going to want nice creature comforts around them. They're going to want something that lasts, something that can handle off-road and foul weather conditions with no problems. And this car absolutely does all that, okay? So if you're one of those people where the practicalities and the comfort are the most important things to you, go and test drive one. Thanks ever so much for watching this one, folks. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I always try and give you my very honest opinion on everything I test. We've got loads of other content on the channel too. Lots of consumer advice, car news, car leasing content, car finance content. So please give us a chance and check it out. Throw some thumbs up in the air, and I'll see you on the next one.